Welcome back to my channel. You already know it's your boy Hood Digital, the Rock Reactor, back with another video. Yes, sir. Before I proceed, let me know where you tapping in from. Let me know what country, what city, what mountain, what hill, what cave, what island, what planet, what universe. Let me know where you at. Represent your hood. Yes, sir. You know, whenever I've done documentaries, stuff like that, that has different parts to it, I always leave the last part, the last chapter, or the last part, in this case, the last chapter. I always save it for a rainy day. I don't just do it and end it. The reason why is because I always think that a good time is going to come to actually do that last part. I did it with Money Game, and I did it with other stuff. The Money Game, part 1, part 2, part 3. I saved part 3 for like months later. I did part 3. But anyway, I'm glad I saved this one because Ren right now is at a point where he's doing real good. He's back. You know, he's with the Skinner Brothers. Amongst it, he's doing other projects with the Big Push. And I see he's doing real good. And he's doing fun music now. Based on what I see, he's doing fun music. And I believe, and I've said it before, the last two reactions that I've done with Ren with the Skinner Brothers, I've always stressed to the fans that were listening that my opinion of Ren is that if you're just a Ren music fan, then you're missing a big piece of Ren. And I think it's impossible for you to appreciate him as much if you know about Ren, if you know Ren's trials and tribulations. So Ren's chapters are very, very, very important because the music, excuse me, as I said before, his music, unlike any other artist I've ever seen, his music is just merely a soundtrack of his journey. Understanding his journey was inspiring. For me personally, not just the most important thing for me, and I'm speaking for myself, is knowing how Ren gravitates to people. How people gravitate to Ren. I'm sorry, I said it wrong. How people gravitate to him. It's, to me, that is amazing. That is inspiring. Like, that actually feeds me. Like when I see the comments and see the people, what people say, and we're talking people 70 years old, even 80 years old, that actually follow Ren. And it's like his music is important. His music is amazing. His music is right now, his music is very entertaining, very funny. I've had a lot of fun with the last two reactions that I did with him, and the ones with the Big Push, of course. But right now it's like he's in a different stage right now. He's in a different zone. He's like, it's hard for me to really put it into words, but my renegades know exactly what I'm talking about. He's in a happy time right now. He's in a good space right now. Let's just say. Something else, guys, before I start chapter 8, I wanted to put in light something that in this video I was reading the comments because I love to read. Like I said, to me it feeds me how people gravitate to Ren. So I read a comment. It was like, and it was from a dude that, let me just say it, his name is Mike Anderson 8535, and I guess he put that it was a friend of his that said this. And he said that the duties of the will do not end where ability fails. Wow. The duties of the will do not end where ability fails. And that just like, wow, that goes hand in hand with Ren's journey. Because Ren has never given up. And this is why Ren, his resiliency is like, he's a walking motivator. He's a walking inspiration, and people just feed to that, and that just goes perfectly with him. But let's get right to it, guys. 'Cause like I said, I could sit here and talk about REN forever. And guys, before we do, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, hit the like button. Any donations to my channel will be greatly appreciated. My PayPal account is on the description. Let's get right to it. REN Chapter 8.
I was sat in a cafe across from a strange French man in a suit.
Oh man.
I had to decide over a 5-minute drink if this was the man that I was going to live with for the next year of my life. A week before, I'd been sat in the same cafe with a Polish man. My friend Luke had put me in touch. Me and my girlfriend had decided to move into separate houses in hopes it would fix our crumbling relationship. The guy seemed pretty chill online, and so I'd already agreed to move in with him. This was just a little informal meet before we did. A few minutes in, I instantly regretted everything. He told me a story of how the week before he'd come home drunk and he'd pissed all over his own living room and was in hysterics about it. I laughed nervously, taking a sip of water as I imagined a future of watching Netflix shows near a carpet that stank of piss. He then went on to tell me a story of how this girl that he'd liked had rejected his advances, so he'd, in his own words, grabbed her by the pussy and she slapped him. He wasn't sure if it was going to work out between them. I was
Sure that wasn't Donald Trump?
of watching Netflix shows near a carpet that stank of piss. He then went on to tell me a story of how this girl that he'd liked had rejected his advances, so he'd, in his own words, grabbed her by the pussy and she slapped him. He wasn't sure if it was going to work out between them. I was certain it wasn't going to work out between them. I didn't laugh this time. I made an excuse and I left. When I got home, I messaged him, making up a lie that me and my girlfriend had patched things up and she'd be moving with me instead. I had a week to find a new roommate. I was, for all intents and purposes, a loud little bugger. I'd often spend unhealthy amounts of time making beats, so the person that I moved in with needed to be able to tolerate noise. I found this Facebook group called Brighton Bands and Musicians and I posted on it. It went something like this. Hi, I'm a noisy person and I'm looking for another noisy person to live with. Enter the Frenchman. He'd moved from France in hopes of kick-starting his music career. He was working in a restaurant and busking on the streets whenever he had time. He was, for the better part of the word, eccentric, and at first I couldn't quite place him. The bar was set extremely low by the carpet-pissing sex offender though, so the Frenchman could have probably told me he was part of an extreme terrorist organisation and I'd probably said, "Great mate, when can you move in?" The house was only meant for two, but in true cheapskate style we found a third housemate called Tom, who was probably one of the funniest people I've ever met. Tom would go on hour-long rants about how Nicolas Cage is the world's best actor.
I said, put the bunny back in the box.
And he makes a compelling case too. That Frenchman was Romain Axisa. We'd go on to form a band called The Big Push and he'd become one of my closest friends. The second week we moved in together it was his birthday, so me and Tom decided to gaffer tape about 50 baguettes and bunches of garlics to the walls and ceilings to decorate. It was 2016 and political correctness hadn't come into full effect. He still didn't think it was very funny. My energy was only improving during this time, although progress was slow. The doctor had recommended I do a second transplant to speed things up. I returned to LA for the second time with my close friend Saran and went through the motions again. Eventually I'd switched to their sister clinic in Frankfurt, where I entered one of the more unusual periods of my life. The UK has border regulations on certain medications and supplements. Some I shouldn't have been taking back with me. I remember fashioning a hidden compartment in my suitcase where I would smuggle IV bags full of various nutrients and immune modulating drugs over the border. I did this a few times. One drug, Filgastrim, was often given to AIDS or cancer patients with low neutrophil counts. On my tests, my neutrophils were always outside of range on the lower side, so the injections would theoretically raise them.
Did he just admit to trafficking drugs inside the UK publicly?
The issue was I was still broke. I don't think the doctor realised how broke. I was meant to pay for private nurse to administer the drips, but I couldn't afford it. So without telling the doctor, I taught myself how to administer an IV watching YouTube tutorial videos. First, it was very messy. I messed up a lot of veins trying to get the catheter to stay in. There was a lot of blood, but eventually I got the hang of it. I'd be sitting in the living room watching One Punch Man while an IV bag dripped slowly into my veins, and day by day I got stronger and stronger. The issue was I started noticing my food intolerances getting worse. The stem cells had improved my pain, energy, clarity of thought, but it worsened my ability to tolerate food, something I later learned was caused by MCAS or mast cell activation syndrome. Some other stories also started circulating online groups of people getting far worse after the stem cell transplant. I can't say that this didn't shake me. As more time elapsed, I learned of legal cases that were opened against the clinic for malpractice. The clinic in Beverly Hills eventually shut its doors. It was hard to know how to feel about this. The doctor had been my saving grace. He'd pulled me out of a half existence, but I could see where people's frustrations were coming from. As the clinic grew in popularity, I think its resources became stretched, and its communication became worse. Nonetheless, that man will always remain the third angel in my tale, and I'll always be grateful. It's hard for me to definitively recommend stem cells. I believe it's a gamble. Some got worse, but
see, that's something else I wanted to point out, guys, that makes REN REN. It's part of REN's quality, I'm gonna say strength, is that REN is very appreciative. REN is very grateful when he needs to be, and he's very appreciative of life too. That's important.
They did actually really help me. They didn't cure me, and some of my symptoms got worse, but they allowed me to be an active member of society again, and that was huge for me. A few more months passed. My girlfriend had moved to Australia, but she was being very distant with me and rarely answering calls. She broke up with me on Christmas Day while I was visiting my mum. I took it very badly, but it was also symbolically the end of one chapter and the start of the next. Despite our difficulties, I'm still grateful for the time we shared. There's always two sides to every story, and I don't imagine it was easy being with someone who was tormented by my health problems as I was during the time. I returned back to Brighton, and then I started living. For the first time in years, really living. Me, Romain and Tom would throw parties nearly every night. I didn't drink or do drugs, but I was high on being able to participate. I felt like I was living in Brighton for the first time in my life. I was able to walk around, to take in the city, to live. I also started getting the attention of women. During my teen years, I wasn't the best looking and I was a bit awkward. During my early 20s, I was so sick I rarely went out. So this was new for me, and I threw myself in head first. I realised that I really like pretty girls, and pretty girls apparently like boys who make music. A lot of nights I'd go out by myself around Brighton and end up meeting a whole bunch of beautiful women. One night I ended up breaking into the Hilton Hotel with a girl that I just met.
He must be getting a lot of beautiful women now, because he jacked. He looking right. So I know a lot of girls gravitating to him.
We managed to get onto the roof, but we were chased down the flights of stairs by security. We ended up having sex on the beach at 2 in the morning while the tide came in. The parties we throw would get crazier and crazier. There'd be times where everyone was half naked by the end of the night. I'd find myself in strange situations where I was having sex on a living room sofa with 2 girls while some random dude sat smoking a joint on a nearby table.
Oh shit, damn.
I noticed this guy who was a friend of Romain's who kept passing out on our sofa. One time he woke up covered in scratches from this Mexican girl who had been telling us stories the night before of all the people she'd stabbed. This guy was Goran Kendall. He sang like Bob Dylan, and he looked like he'd fallen out of a punk rock band. I liked him. Me, Romain and Goran were all musicians, and naturally we started jamming together. I remember the first time something clicked. We were at Goran's house with an Australian girl I'd been seeing and her friends. The night before, she'd gotten drunk and tried to strip me naked during an open mic night at the Fiddler's Elbow. I was pretty willing, and we both ended up in our underwear being kicked out in fits of laughter. We decided to start working out 3-part harmonies together. We figured out a cover of Octopus's Garden by the Beatles. And not to blow our own horns, but it sounded fucking brilliant. I remember someone walking past the house and hearing from outside, and they started to clap. Eventually the 3 of us would busk on the streets together. We all busked separately, so it made sense. Back then, I'd occasionally drag a kick and a snare drum out with me in a wheelbarrow, and I'd drum while Goran and Romain played and sang. We would always have people come up to us and they'd ask for our band name, and we never had an answer. We came up with this genius idea of forming a band.
Genius.
One of us said that we should be called the 3 Hats because there was 3 of us and sometimes we wore hats. One of us said, nah, that's shit. Eventually we settled on the Big Push, and we got tighter and tighter. As my energy increased, I was able to do more and more. We play about 5 nights a week in various pubs and bars in Brighton for shit money. On Saturday we'd get out onto the streets and go busking. There was just one problem. I was proper shit at drumming. The universe eventually provided us with a handsome bearded Irishman, and everything fell into place. I loved those boys. We were in truest sense a rock and roll band. We got banned from playing at a few venues because we'd occasionally get carried away and break a bit too many things on stage. I got a lot of bills for microphone stands or charges for paint jobs where I'd sprawled the Big Push over the walls in permanent marker pen. Life was a bit like a movie. My ambition at the time wasn't to be in the greatest band of all time or to have any kind of success. I was just so relieved to be alive and play. So every day felt like a victory.
See, you notice, guys, and this is what intrigues me. It's like he'll talk about all the stuff he's going through, putting IV and, you know, the food intolerant and all this stuff. And then he'll talk about his sickness, and then he'll go right into the fact that he's in the band, he's playing music, he's doing this, he's doing that, and like his he won't talk about his sickness there for a while he's making music, while he's busking. He won't talk about his sickness.
Despite this, I was still carrying a lot of symptoms with me. The pain in my legs never stopped. The buzzing in my feet never relented. My vision was still blurry. I'd still get days where I was so foggy that it was hard to communicate. One day after a gig with the Big Push, being overstimulated triggered a very temporary jolt back into psychosis, and I found myself lying on a table in the pub, repeating the same sentence over and over again for about 10 minutes, while surrounded by a very concerned group of onlookers. I came to, in tears, and I quickly left in embarrassment. If I didn't stick to my diet of about 5 different things, I'd be trapped in bed again, but it was okay. I was willing to hurt if it meant I could participate in life again, and I intended to live the fuck out of it. I met this beautiful Spanish girl one night after playing a low...
I like this, guys. I gotta rewind this right here because this just shows how he's determined. Ain't no stopping Ren at this point.
Being overstimulated triggered a very temporary jolt back into psychosis, and I found myself lying on a table in the pub, repeating the same sentence over and over again for about 10 minutes, while surrounded by a very concerned group of onlookers. I came to, in tears, and I quickly left in embarrassment. If I didn't stick to my diet of about 5 different things, I'd be trapped in bed again, but it was okay. I was willing to hurt if it meant I could participate in life again, and I intended to live the fuck out of it. I met this beautiful Spanish girl one night after playing at a local pub, and I fell instantly in love. She had this beautiful blonde curly hair and was wearing dungarees, and I was enamoured with her from the first moment I saw her, and she didn't make it easy, which made me like her even more. I'd write her poetry, invite her to shows and attempt to be funny. She knew me as the local slut, which didn't really make things very easy, but with time she could see that I genuinely cared about her, and I did, a lot. One time we snuck into a cinema together, and I proceeded to climb onto what I thought was the stage below the screen to put on a show for her as she sat alone in the aisles cheering. What I didn't know was that stage wasn't a stage, it was a 6-foot drop. I confidently put my feet on thin air, and then I fell, smashing my face onto the corner of a railing on the way down, seeing a flash of white light and regaining consciousness with her rolling around in fits of laughter on the floor. She was intelligent, creative, unusual and beautiful. I carried a lot of trauma with me into that relationship. Relationships generally didn't feel safe for me. She was briefly diagnosed with BPD, which later turned out to be a misdiagnosis, and I had major trust issues from my last relationship, which had grown into commitment issues. It was a bit of a recipe for disaster, but we loved each other very intensely and very dysfunctionally until we couldn't. I wish I'd been able to surrender. It was a bit Sid and Nancy, very dramatic to say the least, and I won't get into it for her sake, but it was beautiful, and I loved her very much. It taught me a lot. I learned that the echoes of the past had shaped me into something that I struggled to be. I envied the people who could jump into relationships and feel safe or content. I wondered if it was because I had to watch my mum and dad fighting till their marriage crumbled when I was a kid. If it was because I'd learned as a child that I had to be independent because external love was inconsistent. I wondered if it was because I'd been too late to save Joe. I wondered if it was because I was forced to live most of my adult life in isolation. I wondered if it was to do with my past relationships. I didn't know, but I felt confused and I felt angry with myself. I knew I wanted to surrender to love, to feel truly worthy of it, but every time I tried I felt discontent and unsettled, like the security of love was something I wanted to escape. The thought of ending up in a white picket fence house with my perfect family felt like prison. After 8 long years of being tethered to a body in pain, I wanted to be liberated from any sort of attachment. Any sort of predictability of the future after a life of torturous monotony made my stomach feel like I'd swallowed cinder blocks. When I felt someone's love, I had to fight the urge to run and keep moving, but paradoxically still desperately wanted to be loved. And I loved to love. And I loved her. That discontent was something to stop with me, and it hasn't made relationships easy. Around 2018 I'd reconnect with Sam. He was in his 20s now, so I felt far less weird about hanging out with a teenage boy. During this time we wrote a few songs together. Blind Eyed, What Went Wrong and Same Old Situation. All bangers, by the way. It was April and we were shooting a video for What Went Wrong. We were using my friend Josh's car, and there was a scene where we needed a smashed up bonnet, but it went outside of the budget we had to pay for the video, so me and Sam decided to go busking to raise the money. I promise what follows is the truth. We never rehearsed Blind Eyed live before, but while we were out on the street I turned to him and I asked if we should play it. I started playing the first chord that made sense without even thinking. It started in B minor in this kind of reggae way that was totally different to the original recording. Somehow, it was totally fucking magic. The whole street stopped. Sam was hitting notes and runs that seemed outside of the reach of a mere mortal. Luckily, Sam Perry Falvey, who films the videos, was with us, and he captured the whole thing on camera. Before this moment, I kind of surrendered to the fact I probably wouldn't have a career in music again. I was doing it for me. I was doing it to celebrate being alive. The week after the video shoot, me and Sam decided to go busking again because it had felt so good. Someone filmed us covering a version of Vera Hall's Trouble So Hard.
Trouble so hard.
And posted it to a Mexican restaurant page on Facebook. It was the first thing that I'd done since returning to the land of the living that went viral, and it went very viral. It started being shared everywhere by millions of people. 2 weeks after that, another cover of us performing was circulating the internet. That went viral too. By the time we released the busking version of Blind Eyed, the internet went crazy. My social media following started exploding. People like Elton John were talking about us on the radio. People would fly in from all over the world just to watch us perform on the street. By the end of summer 2018,
if Elton John is talking about you, man, you're doing something good.
We were shutting down entire high streets because of the volume of people coming to watch us perform. There was something magic about the synergy of me and Sam that stopped people in their tracks. We were being tagged in videos from all over the world of people listening to Blind Eyed. People were listening from war zones, from rocket launch sites, from deep in jungles. It was surreal, and it was incredibly affirming. It was a second chance, and I didn't think I'd get a second chance. The shared out with Sam was special. A lot happened after that. More love, more heartbreak, more health complications, more healing, more setbacks, more parties, more medication, sold out shows, frustrations with the music industry, betrayals, theft, friends lost to addiction. My health would take me on more journeys into foreign countries, #1 albums, awards, a pandemic, meeting idols, making money, losing money. But I'll save all that for another time. It's fitting that this story ends here. Trouble So Hard by Vera Hall has always resonated with me very deeply. She was the daughter of a slave, navigating a hostile 1940s America, something I'll never be able to relate to. The pain and simplicity of the line, "Don't nobody know my troubles but God," was one that seemed universal to all struggles. And it was a line I was always deeply connected to. If there is a God, I want to thank you for giving me the resilience to be able to sit down here and to tell my story today. I hope it's far from over, and I hope that this is just chapter 1. Thank you, everybody, for giving me the space to share my story with you. For everybody still in the dark, trust, hope, and dare to dream that you can get out of it too. I love you all, and thank you for supporting me like you have.
You know, Ren, you know, I wanted to say this, guys. He said something that is crazy. He said, if there is a God, a lot of us out there realize and confirms, and maybe would agree with me, that Ren, his trials, his tribulation, and Ren himself confirms that there is a God. His will, his story, all confirms that there is a God. It all confirms that our trials and tribulations sometimes is used to strengthen us. And it's crazy how our journey can inspire so many people, how our mishaps during our life can motivate and move so many people and help a lot of people out the mud and out of their mishaps. It's crazy. Guys, all I have to say is this to end this. If you are a fan of Ren's music, believe me, you're missing a big piece of Ren that goes way beyond his music, which is his journey. And I recommend anybody, if you don't want to watch my reaction, that's okay. That's on you. But watch REN chapters from 1 to 8. Because believe me, it would make you see Ren as who he is, more than music, a human inspiration to all of us, and a confirmation that there is a God. Guys, you already know, man. Subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, hit the like button. Any donations to my channel will be greatly appreciated. My PayPal account is on the description. We love you, Ren. Peace, love, and God bless.